I'm going to take us to a different place because
you always do.
The new secretary, White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, she made her briefing room debut by sending a major online invitation. And I'm supposed to say, is this a step into the future? Yesterday, the new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, gave her very first press conference where she announced that they're adding extra seats to the briefing room. Take a look.
It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new...
Yeah, and I'm sure they revoked those because they didn't want that kind of press calling them out on their shit.
Media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. This seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff.
Kind of hilarious that the View is covering this when half the stuff they talk and say is misinformation and untruth.
Will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
What'd she say?
She basically said that they were going to get...
It's just asshole comments just for reaction. She thinks she's funny. I don't know. And she thinks she's a comedian. There's nothing funny about that RBF.
How boring.
Unqualified people.
Not so
Behind the
tedious.
Table podcast needs to apply for White House credentials.
Oh, they'd love having Joy in that room.
I got a question. So wait a second. So in other words, instead of Bob Woodward, they want Kim Kardashian? What? I don't get it.
Wait, okay.
Because you're a freaking idiot. There's a lot of media out there that actually do their research and talk about truthful things, unlike this show, which has to read statements constantly for misinformation. So, I don't know. You do be the judge.
I have a question, which is why I was leading us in this direction.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off.
Oh, really?
And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Thank the stars.
Let me explain something to you.
Please explain.
Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not.
But that's not what the definition of woke is. And I'm going to provide that with you from Vivek in just a minute, just so we can all be clear.
Invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because Black people couldn't get into colleges, because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not Black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's.
This is why DEI has been removed. The past secretary was a complete waste, and every time she lied, she did the blinking thing. Oh my God, she sucked. So she basically got the job because she was Black and she was a lesbian, not any other reason. This is what I mean. This is what's wrong with this system.
World, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase you're talking about, because you don't understand what you're saying. You're saying about yourself that, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could.
Being woke refers to waking up to invisible alleged societal injustices based on genetically inherited attributes: race, sex, and sexual orientation. And further, it creates a hierarchy based on these genetic attributes to say that you're either an oppressor or you're a member of an oppressed class which creates these invisible relationships that creates a social hierarchy. And what they say is we need to turn that social hierarchy upside down, or at least even it out, by using any means necessary, not just through government, but even through the private sector, even through our schools, and even through our economy itself, including the use of quota systems based on race, gender, and sexual orientation to correct for those alleged societal injustices. That is what it means to be woke. That is what the woke movement is all about.
See, you can't fight intelligence and common sense, which is why they are losing it.
In that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity.
But the opportunity doesn't mean that you deserve to be at the podium. This is the problem with people. This is the problem right here.
To bust down that door.
By the way, I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10.
Joy is such an idiot. She is such an idiot. And bitter and nasty. Ugh, look at that RBF. Damn.
You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Whatever you're saying, this is the first time that she's been she may be. But my point is that job would not maybe have been open to her.
No, I understand. I just wanted to clarify that. But on the issue of the new media, because I actually think this is kind of brilliant, and I think future Democratic administrative White Houses should do the same thing. We're realizing this election, how people consume media has drastically changed. This was the Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Alex Cooper election. It wasn't mainstream old school media that was driving people's interest in what they were following and the stories they were. And I think this is an acknowledgement that Trump realizes this. This is a person who made his career in television.
What's to prevent those media influences from being only on his side?
Well, there will be partisans, but I think it was promising that they brought in Axios, which is mainstream, but then they brought in Breitbart, which is a right-wing outlet. And so some of the outlets that had their passes revoked when Biden came in were right-of-center outlets.
See how Joy gets completely thrown off by intelligence.
I don't have a problem with partisan outlets being there as long as it's representative of both sides and you have non-biased traditional media there as well and that it's fact-driven how they cover it.
The problem that I have with it, though, is, she's saying that these people that are going to apply will meet their criteria.
Yeah.
We understand that their criteria is woefully deficient and unserious. I think that their real problem in this election, one of the real problems among the many, is the misinformation and disinformation that
coming from her. For reals?
That was disseminated on social media by these influencers and by these podcasters.
Hashtags.
Why are they qualified to sit in front in the White House briefing room and tell America what is going on with the country?
You guys do it every week. Now, it's not in the White House, but you guys do it every week and give us false information.
Traditionally, to become a White House correspondent or to be in that briefing room, you had to have a journalism degree. Yeah. You had to have qualifications. So I guess the rise of mediocrity is here to stay.
They're making Snapchat equivalent to the New York Times.
No, but you guys are minimizing something really important here. There was a time where there were 3 evening broadcasts for news. Yes. Everyone sat down around the TV and they watched these 3 news.
Man, those were good times, weren't they? I'd like to have that time back.
Outlets. Now you look at where people consume news. 54% of American adults say they get news from social media. A large majority of U.S. adults, 86% say they get at least some of their information. If you don't want mis and disinformation, which is inevitable, obviously, with this administration, but if you want to go directly to the source and have people receive it themselves and put it out to their audiences, I'd rather have them in that room. Influencers are not just the Kardashians. They're also the Brene Browns. You've got podcasts like Pod Saves America. There are people that only consume their news from other...
They show up.
And I do think that there are a lot of Americans who do feel like the mainstream media got a lot wrong in recent years. And while there are editorial standards, I don't think that we can definitively say, because you have this degree and you're with this outlet, you've never gotten news information wrong.
Well, I will say this. I feel a lot better when I know there are standards people have to meet.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot better when you have standards when you stop lying to people like this show does constantly.
Yeah, of course.
And so you can bring
Qualifications
in whoever you
Shut up,
want.
Sonny.
The truth will the proof will be in the pudding. We can stand and say this is terrible, but so we're gonna wait and see what happens. And the minute it turns out to be state-run television or state-run information or state-run news, because I disagree that people got stuff wrong. People were, I don't know what people were looking for, because the people I talked to were not looking for the things that these folks were looking for. And now that they've got him, are they getting what they want? So that's just my opinion.
But even on the media front, we haven't gotten to this real quickly this week. The CIA came out and said that COVID very likely came from a lab leak. And the New York Times shut down coverage of that. They wouldn't publish an op-ed by a senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton, saying that this was a credential theory. At the time I was at DOD and that was openly discussed is a very real possibility.
Confidence by the CIA.
There is a fact that the media at times has gotten things wrong.
Listen,
So
it isn't about whether they get it wrong or right. It's what they do to correct it. That's the problem.
That does matter. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what
That's
I want.
But it also
you
matters that
tell
the
him,
CIA
Predator.
said that it was a low confidence report, and that is why the New York Times, which has standards, didn't report on it.
But withholding the information altogether purely and saying that it's not even a considered theory was what the mistake was.
The mistake really is there's too much BS floating out there, and now it's out of our hands. There's no way to control
the biggest part of the BS is the view.
So now they're saying they're going to control it. I want to see what they're going to do. I want to see who they're going to invite into this, because quite honestly, I like when we're held to standards. I don't always like the way they do it, but we have to have ourselves together. We can't just say stuff in spite of what they tell you. We can't just spout stuff. So I want.
Really? You guys do it every time you have a broadcast.
That for everybody. And if they're going to guarantee that they're at the briefing, then I'll be happy. But we're going to be right back.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, it's Van Johnson. Thank you so much for being here. There you have it, from The View, the main source of disinformation that we get on a daily level. As people are off the rocker. The DEI thing, the stuff they're getting mad about, there's no argument there. Jean-Pierre, who we had to endure for 4 years, who was a complete a-hole, lied with her every time she talked with her blinking eye things. And just to give you an idea if I think that the DEI thing is shit, she did not deserve the position she had just because she was black and a lesbian. That has nothing to do with that job. It has nothing to do with that position. And that's what's wrong with DEI. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, commenting, subscribing. You guys are great. Awesome. As usual, I am Van Johnson. Y'all take care. Be safe. And I'll see you soon.